Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to use the BubbleSort algorithm to sort out an array of numbers, and this is going to be a JavaScript implementation of BubbleSort. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to declare a function, which I'm going to call BubbleSort. So note the use of camel case there. And inside of the parentheses, the parameter we're expecting, we'll just call it array. And inside of our curly braces then is where we can define our BubbleSort function, which is going to sort this array of numbers. So how BubbleSort works is we're going to compare 66 to each other number in the array. And if 66 is greater than the number after it, which we are comparing it to, we're essentially just going to bubble 66 up through the array. Okay. So how we're going to do this is we are going to use two for loops. So one for loop inside of another, i.e. nested for loops, so we can do this comparison. So we're going to say for var I is equal to 0. And we're going to run this outer loop while I is less than the array dot length minus 1. And then we're just going to increment I after each run of the loop. So inside of our curly braces is where we're going to have our second for loop. So we're going to say for, and we'll say for var j is equal to 0, and I'll explain all this after. While j is less than the array dot length minus 1, and I'm also going to do minus I here, which I'll explain after. We're going to run this loop, and after each iteration of the loop, we just want to increment j there. Okay. Now, inside of our curly braces is where we're going to use conditional logic to do our comparison. So we're going to check to see, 66, how does that compare to 45? The number after it. Is it larger? Is it smaller, etc.? So what we can do is we can use an if statement here. So we can say if, and we're going to say if the array, let's pass in, if j, so the number at the j index, in this case is 66, if that number is greater than the number after it, so we can say array at index j plus 1, what we want to do is we essentially want to swap the numbers. So inside of our if statement is where we're going to do the swap. So is 66 greater than 45? Yes, it is. So we want to bubble 66 up to be here, and 45 will come down essentially. So how are we going to do the swap inside of this if statement? Well, what we can do is we can declare a temporary variable, so say var temp, and assign that the value of array at index j. So essentially inside of our temporary variable, we're assigning the value of j, okay, the number at the j index of the array. So then at array of j, we're going to assign that the value of array at j plus 1. So what are we doing here? What we are doing here essentially is we're saying, okay, we want to do a swap. So whatever number is after the number, so 45 is after 66, we want to do a swap. We're going to take 45 and put it here because 66 is obviously the greater number, okay? And then now that we've assigned 45 to the j index, we want to assign 66 to the j index plus 1. So that's what we'll do. We'll say array at j plus 1, and remember we put 66 inside of the temp variable, so we can just assign that temp there. Okay, so our nested for loops are going to iterate through the array and just do the comparison, and if the number is greater than the number after it in the array, we want to do a swap. Okay, and then when we have done our nested loops, we've done our full check, we can then just return the array. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log out to the console our array of numbers, just so you can see it before and after we run the BubbleSort algorithm. So we'll say console.log, and we'll say unsorted array, and then I'm just going to log out of the console numbers. Okay, so now this is a JavaScript implementation, so let me just run that. So unsorted array, you see here it's 66, 45, 2. So it's not sorted. Okay, you want the numbers to go up, get progressively larger. So let me just clear the console. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to pass in. We're going to console.log out what happens when we pass in this numbers array into our BubbleSort function. So we want to essentially invoke our BubbleSort function. So we'll say console.log, and we'll say sorted. Okay. And then what we're going to log out of the console is we're invoking our BubbleSort function. Okay. So we're invoking our function here using parentheses. And then we want to pass in our numbers array, because this function here, BubbleSort, is expecting a parameter to be passed in. So numbers, and then I'll just use a semicolon there. And now let's check to see if this has worked for us. So I'm going to say nodeindex.js JavaScript file, and sorted. Is the array sorted? Yes, it is. So we've gone 1, 2, 7, 45, 66, 99, 101. Okay, so just to explain what we've done again, we've declared an array here, numbers. Okay, see the numbers, and we've logged it out to the console. What we did was we passed in to our BubbleSort function this array of numbers. So our function BubbleSort is expecting an array which we pass in. We then used 2 for loops, so nested for loops, to iterate over the array. And inside of the second loop, so our nested for loop, we're just doing a comparison, checking to see if the number at index j is greater than the number at j plus 1, which before we iterate would be a comparison of 66 to 45. And if the number on the left is greater than the number on the right, you want to do a swap. And that's essentially what we're doing in here. So that is a JavaScript implementation of the BubbleSort algorithm. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice day.